Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Not a ton of bright spots for this Florida Gators defense in 2023, but one bright spot when you go back and watch the film, what I think could be a massive bright spot for this Florida Gators defense in 2024 was true freshman Jordan Castell, there's a lot of talk about Caleb Downs and what he did at Alabama as a true freshman safety. You can say a lot of the same things for Jordan Castell. And yes, he went through some growing pains. That is very evident on the film. But you're talking about a guy that won Billy Napier, Austin Armstrong, trusted in a major way, played a lot of reps, led the team in tackles, was a guy that only missed 10% of his tackles in 2023, and a guy that we talk about this all the time, the versatility in Austin Armstrong's defense, the ability to do a lot of different things and throw a lot of different looks at opposing offenses. That's Jordan Castell. This is a guy that played over 330 snaps as a free safety, another 160 as a box safety, and then another 150 as a slot defender. This is a chess piece in the defense, and it got to show the instincts and composure that he showed as a true freshman. I can't wait to see what he looks like in 2024. Want to dive in to the film of Jordan Castell, talk a little bit about what he brings to the table for this Florida Gators defense. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. And it truly has been a blast talking this Florida Gators team over the last couple of weeks, whether we're talking the recruiting trail, the transfer portal. Cannot thank you guys enough for rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And more importantly, any other players that you want us to kind of take a film dive into, these have been blasts for the boys to do. I think Kelby Collins probably up next for the Florida Gators. But Dill, I'm going to give you the T-box right now. Jordan Castell in 2023. Tell me a little bit about what you think he brings in 2024.
I mean, you kind of saw he pushed out a lot of really good safeties from that Florida football team. And I get people want to say, oh, look at these guys at the portal. It's like when you have a three-star guy come in and make an immediate impact and kind of be the guy in that room, yeah, you're probably going to have a little bit of attrition. And that's not necessarily a bad thing when you have a guy like Jordan Castell step up the way he did. But I think what you kind of just saw is what you were saying. I mean, you kind of figured he'd be able to play physical. You look well over 200 pounds, up in that 6'2" range. But like when you're that size, it's usually hard to be able to play with that range and play with that fluidity that you need to play high level safety. And I think you saw enough, or a lot of that, I should say, from Castell. And that's kind of why you think like he's got what you need to have. I mean, guys want big corners, big safeties, but with that, you need to be an athlete. Not everyone is, and I think he's got that athleticism that you need at that size.
And I think what makes him so special is, 6'2", 220. There was talks about him maybe even moving down to linebacker when he was getting recruited out of high school. Dill, he played cornerback during his high school career. And so you talk about safeties that can hold up in coverage, hold up in man coverage. I mean, Jordan Castell with that cornerback background at the high school level, I think that explains a little bit of the fluidity and ball skills that you saw Jordan Castell have as a true freshman. I think that's largely what allowed him to get on the field so early. I made the comparison off air. I'll make it right here. I mean, kind of some Rod Moore vibes in terms of a three-star safety, kind of under-recruited, comes in as a true freshman and just is impossible to keep off the field because they have such a good feel for the game. And that is by far the most important trait that you can have in safeties, be able to diagnose what's in front of you, play really fast. Want to get into a few things that really popped on the film for Jordan Castell. And Dill, I think it starts with the composure and ball skills that you have. Now, you take a look at this first rep where he's playing that deeper third safety, and he's going to end up running with Dante Thornton Jr., a guy that is one of the fastest wide receivers at the college football level from Tennessee. And what he does here, you don't see a lot of young defensive backs make these kind of plays. This is his third game as a college football player, running with Dante Thornton, gets his head around, makes a play on the football. That is extremely rare to have that kind of composure at that level. And that's, I mean, when you talk about, okay, can this kid be special? I mean, that's probably the rep that you're pointing to and say, yeah, that's a special caliber player right there.
I mean, because that's a brutally tough assignment, but frankly, it's an assignment. If you want to play a more aggressive brand of defense, you're going to need to take on and you're going to need to win enough times to be good. And Austin Armstrong wants to be able to get after quarterbacks, wants to turn the heat up. Then you need your safeties to be able to sit in man coverage, knowing they don't have any help over the top, and make it happen. And you're right. In that moment, that spot where it's his first big game of his life, probably. I mean, he probably played big games in high school, obviously, but there's nothing like being in Florida being in the swamp against Tennessee. I mean, that's the pinnacle. That's college football just does it. And you're kind of like, you even got beat a little bit off the gun, but being able to stay composed and do what you got to do to run under it and make the play and not commit a penalty. Because everybody nowadays, they just run at guys, don't turn their head around, commit penalties all the time. Just to be able to stay composed like that, I mean, just a huge moment in that game, and just to make it happen.
And the next thing that I think is so impressive, not only his ball skills, but also the feel that he has kind of playing that robber position at that safety too. And again, that's normally rare to see with those young defensive backs, because how do you kind of get feel for a game, right? You got to play. And Jordan Castell, again, a guy that was a true freshman, showed phenomenal ability to kind of read quarterbacks' eyes and make plays. You pull up this film, playing kind of that robber look. You see him right here, and he's going to sit there, read Joe Milton's eyes. You're going to see him come right onto your screen here and make a play. This is a guy that has kind of that elite sense. That's why I compare him to Rod Moore. Dill, we always say as Michigan fans, Rod Moore's at the right place at the right time consistently. And you kind of saw that from Jordan Castell as a true freshman. I think that kind of just adds on to why you're so excited about what he can do as he continues to get reps and play time for this Gators defense.
And that's certainly a good way to find yourself on the field. And that's just not to make a ton of mistakes and be where you're supposed to be and make the plays you're supposed to make. I mean, that's hard. It's
which
hard,
is what Florida struggled with, right? What do we talk about all the time is what does Florida struggle with? And I'm sorry I cut you off there. It's just being at the right spot, playing your assignment, doing what you're supposed to do. And I think Jordan Castell kind of provided that for the Florida Gators when a lot of the other players on the football field certainly weren't doing that.
100%. And it's kind of hard because you got to have the presence to everything's going on around you. You see guys crossing your face, all the things you see, and got to make the plays. I mean, you're just right. To be able to be that solid as a freshman, not a lot of guys do it, but the guys who do typically go on to have really good careers, especially at safety, because it's not all about athleticism. I mean, it's a position where you need to be really heady and have good instincts. And there's probably an element of you have it or you don't. And when you're a freshman and you can display it, I mean, that's not going to leave you. You kind of got it. You think he's got it and should have a really good career.
So you talk about versatility, and that's kind of what it starts with for me. Going back and watching this Florida Gators film from 2023, I think the first thing that jumps out is not only kind of some of those ball skills that we showed early, but the versatility. I mean, they didn't treat Jordan Castell like a true freshman. They were throwing him in a lot of different positions, a lot of different spots. Now you see him kind of playing that nickel defender role, and you're going to see him. I mean, this ends up being a completion, but this is one of those plays. I mean, I'll run a film. We talked about having that cornerback background, really, really smooth, right in the hip pocket of Micah Pittman. That ends up going down as a catch, but Dill, that kind of shows you how good he is in man coverage for a 6'2", 220-pound safety. If you can consistently make quarterbacks and wide receivers make those kind of plays in those tight of windows, you're going to win a lot of football games.
Man, it lets Austin Armstrong do a lot of things with him and vary up the looks. And you've kind of, again, what you kind of said, Austin Armstrong's talked a lot about being multiple. I think that's the quote you kind of hear with him at his press conference, being multiple. You want to be able to throw different looks. I mean, when you have that type of player, that really allows you to do it. And not every team's got a Jordan Castell. Some teams have to leave their safeties. Well, this guy's a deep safety. He's a good deep safety, but he's a deep safety. I mean, Jordan Castell, you kind of start to see being around every position and thriving at every position.
Now, the last rep I want to get into here is what he does in run support as well. And that's probably the biggest thing that the Florida Gators struggle with. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Jordan Castell at times struggled with tackling as well. But this is one of my favorite reps because you saw so many times throughout the 2023 season, Florida let running backs get to the boundary, not keeping outside leverage, not keeping good contain. Jordan Castell, again, as a true freshman, this is his 5th college football game on the road in Lexington, Kentucky. Seeing him play that box safety role right here, and you're going to see him stretch this out, end up making the play. But what I want to focus on right now is this is a guy that you see a lot of young defensive backs maybe not play with good leverage, letting the running back get onto their outside shoulder. Not Jordan Castell. Plays extremely disciplined, forces the running back into where his help is. It's the basics of football, but we've said it time and time again. We didn't see the Florida Gators play enough of the basics of football, but Jordan Castell was one of those guys that I always felt like was kind of making some of those plays and doing the simple things the right way, which is exactly what Florida needs heading into 2024.
100%. I mean, that team needs that as much as anyone. And again, when Jordan Castell's playing in control, you do feel like there's some moments in the run game where he comes up, doesn't necessarily break down as well as you'd want
Agreed.
to see. In those type of plays, like again, if he corrects those, I mean, you're looking at one of those top flight safeties, as good as it kind of gets in college football. And I think he will. Again, I mean, it was only a freshman, probably wasn't getting a ton of reps in camp, given where he was kind of starting at that lower 3-star tier. But you started to see like those moments where, okay, that's how you play the run. That's how you play in control, not kind of gut firing up at that guy and letting him get the corner on you. If he really plays like that more consistently, I mean, you're looking at ultra dynamic. That's really probably his next jump in my mind.
Which is, it's not too rare. Like when you get into true freshmen, like they're used to being the biggest, strongest, fastest player on the field at the high school level. And then they get to college and kind of realize, like, hey, these guys are pretty stinking fast as well. And you learn the hard way. You saw Jordan Castell definitely at times learn the hard way. But when you see him kind of develop and again, kind of continue to refine some of those basics, I think you're looking at a safety that really can be special for Florida. I think that begs the question, like, how does that safety room shake out? And I've seen a lot of chatter around Jordan Castell maybe moving to that nickel role. And don't get me wrong, I have a ton of confidence that he could do that if he wanted to. But I think you're looking at really an elite safety in the back end. Him and Bryce Stewart, I think, can be a really special safety combo for the next couple of years. Keep Jordan Castell in terms of what he does best, and that is keeping stuff in front of him, reading the field, diagnosing, and kind of playing with those instincts that I think he really does have, and he showed as a true freshman. If you get Jordan Castell to take that step with how much Florida struggled in the back end and coverage and tackling, I think that's going to be massive for this Florida Gators team. That's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about this team. It is easy to knock this team. They still have a ton of question marks, but one of the things to be excited about is this was a very young defensive coordinator with a very young team. You kind of knew there were going to be some growing pains. But with guys like Jordan Castell, I think you see some of those growing pains mitigated in 2024. The question is not about talent. The question is playing the right brand of football for Billy Napier and the boys. Really excited again. Thank you guys for rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And more importantly, let us know some other players that we should be taking dives into. Appreciate y'all. And we'll talk to you guys later.